Before I go on to the next page, does anyone have any questions? No? Any clarification, please?
I do.
Yes.
This is great. So I have a couple of questions, actually. Let me just start on the sales training side. So when you say technology can be leveraged for sales training reinforcement, so did you get a sense from your research? Technology is an interesting word, right? So what does that actually mean? How did you guys talk about technology? What did that look like?
Yeah, so my group looked at that, and we saw two things. The first was that there were on-demand videos or web conferences or other, sort of using online learning so that the sales team could do reinforcement learning from their desk or on their own time, or the company didn't have to pay for the sales trainers to come back to them. But the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that there seem to just be very few that really built it up on their websites, but that are using big data and that have real-time metrics, or will have something, they built apps for your desktop that provide you data about how you're doing. They may provide tips, they may provide other things, so that it's almost like your trainer never left you, although it's some sort of application or computer or data, something that's constantly reminding you how you're doing and what you could be doing differently.
Interesting. And you saw that technology was being, or the trend was that technology was being more leveraged in reinforcement due to the fact that only 80%, you remember 80% of what you learn when you're face-to-face in a room. And was there any data that said anything about the actual learning, initial learning engagement being more valuable, more engaging, leveraging technology?
I don't remember.
No, I know that we have read a few articles and got a few data information that said that initial learning is better, or they learn much more face-to-face, because in technology people don't always pay attention. But that technology was used to reinforce that learning, so that if you forgot something, it's kind of something that's on demand. If you forgot something or you wanted to reference something, you can go back to it, for continuous learning, because everyone doesn't learn everything when you're there. Like in a sales training meeting, let's say for 2 days, everything's jammed into those 2 days, and you don't learn anything or you don't retain everything. Just having that to follow up was good, but nothing for initial.
Interesting. And last question on technology. Anything regarding some of the differences between self-paced learning and industry design or led learning, and synchronous and asynchronous? Did you see anything around research about what trends might be out there?
I didn't.
No,
But
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We talk about this a lot when we think about investments. There's the corporate side, and not surprising what you found from research, that corporations are looking to invest more in technology-based learning and drive it more to the individual learner, because then they can reach the masses, right? But I'm really curious to know the efficacy and the effectiveness of the learning, and what are people really getting out of the learning, and are they initiating, or are they trying to skirt the system, or I don't know about all of you, but I know how I learned. It was very difficult. Everything I had to learn was self-paced. It would be difficult. And there are a lot of others like me. So when we try to think about a blended approach to sales training and how we think differently about that, I think it's about understanding the trends, but also how do adult learners learn? What's the most effective way? And how can you come up with a model that's a global model, because not everybody is sitting in the same place at the same time.
I think the other thing about the online modules is that it also allows you to customize it, not just to your company, but to that salesperson. So if you're giving a 2-day sales presentation to, say, 50% of the sales force, they're all getting the same content, and somebody may be more advanced or need a different level of learning. And so I think it also allows some greater customization.
Yeah, to the individual learner.
Yes.
Yeah, good. That's great. The other was a question I had around under customers. When you talk about lifestyle and attitudes, my presumption here is that's consumer. versus industry attitudes and what effect that has
Yes.
kind of on this economic piece.
Yeah. So one of the lifestyle things we looked at that was a sort of trend that sales the customers are responding to are aging population, boomers,
I worked on this as well, and I worked on the airline component, and one of the trends we're looking at is companies' attitudes towards travel. So for corporate accounts with airlines, are they, forming relationships with airlines to have all of their travel through that airline, or are they leaving it to sort of the employee to figure out how they're going to get where they need to go and get reimbursed for it? So differences between now and maybe 5 years ago, how companies were approaching that.
Yeah, that's great. So that was when I listened to this, and I think this is a great start. The questions what I was asking myself to all of these, and what I would ask you to answer is the so what to each one of these, right? And that's a great example of that. So what's the implication to Fusion and companies like Fusion and the opportunity, and so what? Which is, I'm sure, where you're going next. But did I have one more? I can't read my own writing. I did, but I'm sure I'll get back to it. That's great. Thank you.
So you were going to turn to page 2?
Yes.
Okay, just one short comment. Sometimes in this situation, I would be asking Carol by column to rank what interests her the most. So that helps me to know where to put my first energy. Doesn't mean that's the only one that's important, because there's a lot of buried understanding. But if we did that, Carol, under the sales training category, could you put those in order of what sort of strikes you? Tonight, because it could be different next week.
Right.
You don't have to if it doesn't seem,
No.
you might not have enough information here to,
Well, you want to do that now?
yeah.
Yeah. I think in the first column, I'd say technology vis-a-vis how we were just talking about it. So then this is great, and this is an obvious statement. So what does that mean? And how are organizations, both in this space and customers, defining and leveraging technology? I heard something interesting the other day that they said not having a technology-enabled platform in our industry is no longer a way of competing. You can't not have a blended technology-based solution. Today, Fusion does not. And we're saying that's okay. But what this report was saying was that that's not an option. So I'd love to have some fuel behind that to say, here's why we need to. But the third one is a close second. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I want to interrupt you.
I was going to say, you don't even have to rank them all. If you want to just like look across them and say, here's the ones that seem really interesting, or you can send it to us tomorrow, or I don't mean to hold us up.
Okay, but so I'll just comment on this, and then I'll get back to you with the other two columns. The third one's interesting to me because as consumers, we are all so highly educated about purchases. And so our clients are too in this space. They come to us after they've already done a considerable amount of research, probably vetting out most of my competition and inviting me to the table versus me introducing Fusion or anybody on my team introducing Fusion, because people are just smarter and they have access to technology and they have access to data and access to information. And we all do that, right, with our purchases. So I'm curious about, again, the so what. So what does that mean for companies like Fusion? Because customers are a part of the sales process, more integrated into the sales process.
Great.
Oh, you're not going to do the second column?
No, I'll get back to you on these. Sorry. I'm going to do a little more time on those. Those are all good.
All right, so the next page, emerging trends on 2 years. So emerging trends in sales training. So we have an election coming up, which we're all excited about. And 2016 elections are going to influence spending attitudes of large corporations, and companies are going to start looking at how they are going to capitalize on this, the potential for it, whether it goes one way or the other, which ways we're talking about, whether, how that could possibly impact them, whether regulations could change as a result of who was president, and all these sort of things that, and the companies are likely going to have to do, or will do, hopefully will do, some types of like scenario planning analysis for that. Executives expect social media to be more relevant to their firms over the next 3 years. Sales training firms must think about this for their own company and their clients, being able to really capitalize on Facebook, Pinterest, all of those things, in which ways people communicate, in which ways companies kind of express their value to their customers. Innovation is an overarching business trend. So innovation is kind of like this sort of like really big word, but firms should use innovation to customize sales training in a